This is your Drive Time News Blast. 30 minutes of jam-packed, up-to-the-minute news from a perspective of truth, liberty, and justice every weekday. This is Monica Perez.
And I'm Brad Binkley.
Today's top story is kind of twofold. It has to do with Iran, as you can imagine. They did, or we are being told that they did what they said they were going to do, which is attack our bases over in Iraq or the Middle East. Trump made a big long speech today saying they did strike missiles at us, but nobody was hurt. And to me, when you start with that kind of stuff, this whole thing was about Iran has got to make a response or they will be humiliated. And when they made a response that turned out flat, I have to say, rubbing that in their faces, if that is really how it came out, seems to me to be a way to dare them to one up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt when I saw that Trump said that Iran is standing down. I thought, is that the best thing to say if this is actually true?
Yeah. So the other big news was that a Ukraine flight crashed.
I saw
with
that.
A lot of Canadians in it, like a majority Canadians. Iran is saying that the Canadians were dual citizens with Iran or people of Iranian heritage. There was a minority of the people were Ukrainian. And I really was scratching my head over this one. So shortly after takeoff, it crashed and blew up. It's a Boeing 737. Of course, Boeing would be the one that people are tweeting at me like, well, Boeings have a lot of problems. I'm like, are you a coincidence theorist? Is that what Boeing has a lot of problems? So a Ukrainian jet crashes in Iran like the day these missiles go off and everything. So I was really trying to figure out what the angle could possibly be on this one. And this is what I was thinking. So what was our response? Usually it's the response that tells what the agenda is. And I have something else about the response being the tell on a different story today. So the response was that we closed airspace over there or cautioned against flying in that airspace or whatever. Like we're restricting that airspace from our point of view. Okay. So that's what happened. So maybe that's what we want to happen. Maybe we're going to start flying bombing raids over there. Like who knows why we did that, but that's what we did. And that was probably what we meant to do. And I thought, well, if we wanted to close that airspace, how would we get that done? An incident like this would justify it. But do we even have planes over there? Like, how could we gin up an incident like that? Do we actually have people who can create those problems? And I thought Ukraine may as well be our puppet as a government. So you could consider it a proxy or a satellite. So you might as well call it a U.S. jet. Then how would you think about it? You would think, well, this has a purpose. So I don't know the details yet. I'm sure the powers that be are just loving all the speculation that's going on around this. Who did it? How did they do it? Was it an accident? What will the investigation say? Who really died? Was someone being assassinated? All that stuff. But I think all that stuff is the distraction, that the reality is they wanted to make sure there was some control over the airspace, and this is how they did it.
Didn't Iran say that they weren't going to give us the black box?
I didn't hear that yet. I just was listening again to the news, and they said they found the black box, that originally they thought it was an accident, but now they're investigating. I didn't hear anything more update than that. But I didn't, it's just, it comes out so fast, this news. And what's funny is about the news, sometimes the news, like Fox News, is behind the actual news. Like you can find information that's being released or rewritten or whatever, like on the internet. I'll get like a Daily Mail news flash that changes the story a little bit, and Fox is still doing like the earlier narrative. So I was listening to serious Fox headlines that could be behind the times. So that's part of it, yeah.
This whole thing, and you touched on this a little bit yesterday, from the killing of the Iranian general to these strikes last night on apparently empty buildings, to the response, the speech today, it all seems very, even more so than usual, dramatic, staged out, and definitely a red herring to something. Anticlimactic. I think
Yeah.
cyber attacks are coming down. There's threats from
Oh,
all these. The DOD is telling
governor
people. Yeah.
of Texas said that they're getting like 16 million cyber attacks a day from Iran.
I heard
Which I, of
that's
course,
a lot.
completely don't believe at
That
all.
is a lot
like,
of
it's
cyber
so
attacks.
stupid. And how does he know it's Iran? It's hard to find. Like I
Yeah,
remember,
right. It could be a fat guy on a couch, as Trump once said.
Yes, exactly. I witnessed a bot attack on a commerce site once, and it all looked like it was coming out of like Afghanistan or something, which it definitely wasn't. Like it definitely wasn't, but it doesn't work the way you think it. Like what you see is not what you get. So I don't believe it anyway. I don't think they're even trying for that to make sense. Another thing that just like came across the wire was that there was a rocket strike in Iraq inside the green zone, whatever that is, near the U.S. embassy there. And it reminded me, Ron Paul said when that embassy came out, they were building that embassy, that this thing was just like a fortress. It was like the Taj Mahal. It wasn't like an embassy. It's like a base of some major proportions. It has like numerous levels of security. You have to get in wall after wall. So when there were protests and stuff and they're throwing like pebbles at a wall, that's like the seventh wall or something, you know? I remember him saying like this embassy, we are not withdrawing troops when it takes thousands of people just to man the embassy or however many it takes. So that rung in my mind that like that embassy is not just your typical like castle for an ambassador.
Yeah.
So Trump came out with this big speech, and it made me crazy. Did you have something to
Oh
ask
no,
me?
I was just
yeah.
scratching.
So the speech. Okay, this is what really made me crazy. My mother called me, and I thought, my mother, she's a huge Trump supporter, but I'm pretty sure it's down to just like he's against abortion, or he says he's against abortion. She's a single issue voter, activist, whatever. And I thought she was starting to realize, and I thought to myself, I told her from day one, this guy was all about starting a war with Iran. I mean, I told her from day one, and all she said to me was, he is not, he doesn't want the war. And if he does that, I will be behind you 100%. Blah, blah. So I thought, I'm going to like call my mother out on this. Like, I'm the only one who said from day one, like one of his he's got two big things, crash, take cover, conservative cover for the big crash, and start a war with Iran. Those are his jobs. The censorship, infrastructure, those are secondary, but he has to do those two things. If they're going to use them for anything, that's it. So she says, oh, that guy was evil. He killed that guy. He was evil. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How do you know? I could just tell by looking at him. Just tell by looking at him. I can't tell
I mean, I don't know who actually looked at him because all they found was that ring because his body was so badly.
Right. And it's not like my mother like doesn't like people who look like that. My dad kind of had that coloring. Like that is some of her own people look kind of like that. Like I don't think it's just her being like, I don't know, that guy looks like an Arab. I don't think that's what she's thinking.
Yeah, I think it's the Trump, the loyal Trump support.
It's the pro-Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
So I said to her, it's like, look, when you face St. Peter and he says, why did you give your consent to this guy getting killed with your money and your name? Oh, Trump's the one who's going to have to talk to St. Peter about this. I said, no, you are. I said, now Trump's a murderer. We didn't know that for sure before, but he's taking credit for being a murderer. You can't give him the benefit of the doubt. That's not how the legal system works. Well, he killed that guy, but let's just assume he had a good reason.
I wonder if Google's going to give St. Peter a copy of all our tweets and all our internet searches so he knows what we were really doing.
I think so, but those hot links better work.
Yeah.
Because when you click through to that guy was evil, I want them to click through.
Right.
There's this article I tweeted it's at a site called craigmurray.org.uk. I think I saw it on Lou Rockwell. And he goes into the legal reasons why it is completely illegal to kill. I mean, this is the recognized government of Iran. They have a military this guy is a recognized government official. You're not allowed to just assassinate these guys. There are like, people have even rewritten the rules in a way that don't seem good. However, even those rewritten rules, like the preemptive strike stuff that Israel kind of created, I think, for their 6-day war. I don't know, but I don't know all the history of it. But this guy's article is pretty good if you want to bone up on that stuff. But so what he's saying is it has to be non-state actors anyway. And that actually makes sense because of what's actually happening here, which is whatever this guy had planned, and they rewrite the expression imminent too. It doesn't really have to mean imminent. And imminence is one of the criteria for just war, I think, like an imminent attack. So they use the word even though they don't mean what it means. But the reason you exempt non-state actors or only apply this to non-state actors is because a state actor is carrying out the policy of the state. So when you take this guy out, his successor has already said he's going to continue everything this guy had on the burner. So if it's terrorism, and then we have war, right? But taking this guy out doesn't actually change the outcome at all if he's acting in an official state capacity. So,
right.
And if it's just a strategic, well, he's the best one of the bunch, so we have to kill him, then that is truly an act of war. But if this guy's rogue, then you give him a trial. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing legal about this. It's wrong. And that, like, my mother, who has such a strong sense of morality, even if it's just her morality, this violates her morality. You can't give somebody the benefit of the doubt on murder in another country that could have implications for us all. I found it disturbing.
It could be propaganda of the deed, a symbolic thing designed to have an impact on other leaders. You know, they show them the tape of JFK. You talk about that.
Yes, yes.
If somebody were to do that to Trump, while it might not change how the government acts, it would be a very powerful, symbolic, mobilizing thing that could be used for whatever, however they want to use it.
You're scaring me.
Oh, so I didn't mean to scare you.
Yeah, because what if this guy's getting set up? Trump? Not for international impeachment, but that when the Secret Service started failing under Obama, I was worried for Obama.
Yeah.
Because, like, with JFK and Reagan, like, those incidents, those guys got shot because of Secret Service failures.
Yeah.
You have to have that in place before you bring something down like that. And they don't just take people out they don't like. They make martyrs.
Yeah. And that could be possible. I hope not.
If you're really looking for a civil war, that would get you one.
That would be,
and they could just blame it on
chaos.
Iranians, or it could be.
That's right.
It could be ambiguous.
Yeah. Another thing that was interesting to me, and that is a scary thought because that could cause mass chaos.
And it's not like they haven't done stuff like this before.
I know. Somebody's
done it.
Right.
You know, you can say, I don't know who killed JFK, but somebody did it.
Yeah, somebody did it.
Even if it was a lone wolf guy, and look what it did.
So this guy, cult figure, they had so many people at his funeral yesterday, and that story which you mentioned yesterday where 56 people were stampeded to death, that's an odd story, by the way. They're
totally.
At a funeral celebrating, and then
it
suddenly
postponed his funeral or moved where he was buried.
Right.
It's really weird. It's really weird. I mean, I can't believe that Iran is playing along with something like this. I don't believe that.
And that's
but
what's
it's
curious,
so weird.
The bomb, which was clearly a symbolic thing that, I mean, from the moment it happened and they reported it, I said, this plays right into making it look like a Trump win and it made them look weak. That's instantly what I thought. Iran.
That they didn't kill anybody with their bombs, even though they said it would be eye for eye kind of stuff.
Yeah, they did. They just hit the buildings, and then they said they didn't want anything else. Almost like they did a kind of a slap, and then like we don't want anything else. So that makes me think that if this guy was as important of a figure, if somebody in our government got taken out like that, our response is probably not going to be, we're going to take an empty building. We're sorry. Just leave us alone.
One of the things in Trump's speech today was that since he's been president, we've spent $2.5 trillion on the military, which, like, who brags about that? For every trillion we have spent, Iran has spent $20 billion.
Yeah. Chump change.
So there's they have absolutely no power. The only thing we can hope for is that the international community tries to at least refute the claims that Trump makes. Like when he says that we sent $150 billion over there, they're using for their bombs and stuff towards us. That was their money that we had just frozen for no good reason, there was probably good reason, but it wasn't taxpayer dollars, or like that they were violating the nuclear agreement. They absolutely were not. We pulled out of that. You can find the UN and stuff. They did not violate that agreement. So when Trump is saying stuff that is not true to justify what he's doing, like, to me, that further makes it seem like there is no good justification, or he'd just be focusing on the justification.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that.
It's definitely a strange story. It's almost like Iran knew it was going to happen and maybe even wanted that guy taken out, or maybe he's not. Maybe they hit him. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
They don't seem that upset about it, the government anyway. And they seem to be, at least in the way it's being presented, maybe this is just propaganda across the board. And I really don't know how they're actually reacting.
Well, is Putin calling the shots, though? Because their only hope, the only reason we don't just roll in there with tanks anyway, right, is Putin. I mean, a ground war would be kind of, I think, crazy in that place because it's a big country. I don't know. And they do have a lot of soldiers.
And we do have their whole infrastructure held hostage.
All right, so why don't we just nuke them, I guess is my question.
Nitrous, what was that? Operation
Nitro
Zeus. Yes, where we have little cyber bombs that can literally shut their grid down. Mm-hmm. So it's very strange. Well, look,
we're clearly trying to provoke them openly. So Patrick Clausen said we're using covert means to start a war with Iran. Now they're using overt means. And they say it's good if somebody else would start the war. Well, they're just trying to get them to start the war. Just a couple of quick things. Trump is asking NATO to get involved, to accelerate, to make sure that they don't continue with the nuclear agreement, that they step up their presence in the Middle East, or at least their activity there. In April, I believe, or whenever the S-400s from Russia are activated in Turkey, Turkey gets a new round of sanctions. And this Ghosn guy who escaped from Japan to Lebanon, they emphasize that he went through Turkey. So Turkey is looking like an untrustworthy, weak, like they have security breaches there, stuff like that. I think there's a reason Turkey's just thrown in that. Trump also said something about hypersonic missiles. And I have an interesting firsthand piece of information that's interesting. My husband always takes my son to the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. So they went and they look forward to the bomber going overhead. They're obviously nothing like me. I do not like bombers. So I didn't realize this, but every year my son is ready for it and he videotapes it, videos it on his phone. So he just showed me, he was like, look, last year it was super, super loud, and this year it was completely silent. It's a stealth bomber.
Yeah.
And my husband mentioned it too, and he was like, I feel like they're trying to send somebody a message like you won't even hear us coming.
Yeah.
And then Trump said the hypersonic thing today, and I was like, whoa.
We talked about that in a propaganda report a few months back, that emerging technology they have.
That was because Russia was talking about it, right? Because that's also been in the news from Russia.
Russia, that was another episode we mentioned them.
Yes.
We had the military college guys. We're talking about the crazy technology that we're developing right now in the military, and hypersonic was one of them.
Really? Yeah, well, Putin was talking about it too. I wanted to just add one thing about that, what I think the Ghosn escape. It's so hard to call him that because his name is Ghosn.
Yeah.
But
sounds like goon also.
The fourth time I read about this, I had to believe that there was a reason for it. So he got busted out of Japan with the help of a former Green Beret, of a USAID guy, State Department guy. Like, these guys are all former deep state CIA operatives, okay? They were planning it for months, but the trigger for this guy was when they wouldn't let him see his wife for Christmas. So they went through a multi-million-dollar operation preparing for a month, but he didn't commit to it until Japan went the last straw. The whole story is weird. The two agenda items that keep coming up, or it looks like agenda, things that are going to change, policies in Japan that are going to change, two of them are, one, the private companies do the airport security. So my expectation is that, like, after 9/11 for us, well, I think it was somewhat before 9/11, but after, they're going to go completely government control of their airport security in Japan, I'm guessing. But the other thing is this criminal, quote, justice system over there is so preposterous that they have basically 100% conviction rate. And it's not because they only prosecute people who are guilty.
Yeah.
Something's going to change there too. I don't know what, but that's on the chopping block.
Yeah, because his wife couldn't see him on Christmas. That's what rallies the crew together. They didn't let him see his wife. That is a little bit odd.
Yeah, that's what they said. It's totally weird. And so what? You know what? I mean, it's not the end of the world.
That's a blessing for some people at Christmas time.
His wife looks kind of cute.
Okay.
But no, I don't know. Anyway, the point is that they had already done months worth of research. And of course, again, the Wall Street Journal goes into great detail of how to defy any security system in any airport. Like, this is what they did. This is how they did it, blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous. It's excessive. They're like, this type of crate. First they did this. They tested the system by putting a couch in, then they put an empty crate in, then they put a full crate in. Like, it's just, I like feel like taking notes, like in case I ever need to
I know, it sounds
get out of the country.
Good advice. It sounds like they did all this preparation. They said, we're doing all this preparation and we're going to implement it once they cross or they trip the tripwire, which is preventing him from seeing his wife on Christmas.
Yes, it was. They know that if they go all Grinch, it's over.
Yeah,
it's over.
Yeah. So another thing related to the Iran thing, and something we talked about briefly yesterday, is there have been text messages being sent out that are scamming people, threatening them, saying that the Army has been trying to reach you because you are being drafted, and they have been unable to reach you, and you are going to go to jail for up to 6 years if you do not respond.
Wow.
And people are responding.
Freaking out.
They're freaking out. Yeah. What this is similar to the IRS scam.
So what do? You call them back and you put your social security number in?
You give them your information.
You pay the $100 fine with your credit card? No way.
And then they have websites claiming to be Secret Service websites that are phishing scams. So somebody better warn Podesta to change his email password, because they're taking advantage of all of this, using the trending thing of, am I going to get drafted into World War III? And
wow, that's clever.
These scammers are everywhere. I was telling my parents the other day, there's lots of elderly scammers that call all the time because I see some stuff that gets printed out and I'm like, this is a scam. You know this. Run this by me. And one called the house yesterday and I answered, and the guy goes, we are going to give you a faster internet today. We're going to double your internet speed. And I was like, I could use double internet speed. And he goes, okay, I am with your service provider. And I was like, my service provider? Who? And he goes, your service provider. I was like, but who is my service provider? And he went, Verizon, which is not my service provider, but I played along for a little while.
Right.
And I was like, what do I do? And he said, is there 3 green lights on your thing? And I was like, yes, there is. And he goes, I need you to stand in front of your computer. And so what I did was I went and physically stood in front of it, and I just went, okay. And then he goes, are you on your computer? I said, no, I'm standing in front of my computer. Is your computer on? I said, you didn't tell me to turn it on. You told me to stand in front of my computer. And then he goes, okay, you need to turn it on. And I went down and I was like, all right, I need to go out to the garage and get a crank to see if I can get this thing. I just messed with him, and he stayed on the line because he thought I was stupid and he thought he was going to get money out of me.
Right.
And then at the end of it, I said, hey, dude, does this scam ever work? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, my Verizon is not my thing. AT&T is, you cocksucker. Does this thing ever work?
Ho.
Now, I was doing it to show my dad, And my dad, who doesn't usually laugh at vulgarity, found it very funny because the guy was trying to scam him. So these scams, they will jump all over anything they can use to exploit, and including this fear of going into the Army. So be careful out there.
Yes, and they can target different demographics, and when you're just not one of them, they don't care if you can see right through it. And that goes back to the other thing where the more preposterous it is, the better off, because they get confident, because it's a confidence game.
Yeah. Speaking of which, a quick one from yesterday. A guy was arrested, a sex offender, convicted sex offender, was caught showing up to emergencies in South Carolina, fires, dressed as a firefighter, pretending to be a first responder. And he got busted, thankfully, because the other firefighters asked him questions and he didn't know the answers to it. But he was going up, he was stopping traffic himself. I mean, it's absurd.
He wasn't running off with unconscious victims of smoke inhalation.
He might have been doing this for a while, for all we know.
Yeah.
So this is, I pointed this story out. It's similar to the last one.
Taking advantage of
and this is what I'm talking about right here. This is a microcosm of, I think, the type of people who seek power and who are likely to gain power, because this person is a psychopath. This person is a psychopath who...
Yeah, no conscience.
Yes, who knows that they can put on a symbol of trust and authority and go take advantage of people in their most vulnerable moments when they aren't going to question this authority, because this authority is the very thing that they need in that moment.
Dude, again, you're scaring me.
These are our politicians, I think.
Right, exactly.
Right. Yes.
But yes, that's what. Just because you went through the front door instead of the back door doesn't mean you're not using the uniform. Like Edward Bernays said to Dave, whatever his name is, who's the late night guy?
Letterman.
Yes. He said to him, "Oh, you're the famous Dr. Bernays. You know, what's your story?" And he said, "My story is that everyone's going to believe what I said now that you called me Dr. Bernays."
Yeah.
Or because I'm wearing a white coat or whatever. That's it. And I'm sure he's a real PhD or whatever.
Yeah. But you're right. He talks about that a lot. You use those terms, those symbols, because it gains automatic
that's what
trust.
They're for.
Yes.
That is clear what they're for. Uniforms are for that.
Mm-hmm.
Hitler was great at the uniform.
He was.
You know, like big shoulders, and I think the boots probably had a little heel.
Yeah.
You know, like just make them larger. Yeah, like make people larger.
Yeah.
Yikes. This is scary. So give me one more.
Well, the other thing that I have is the CES, the Consumer Electronic.
Oh, yes. I did not read about that because I knew you were going to tell me about it.
I can run through just a handful of quick things, and then you can get your opinion on them.
Yep.
These are some of the select items that I pulled out looking at it that have the theme of basically mass surveillance and this smart world is being built up around us while we cheer it on for the sake of it's going to be easier to do things now.
That is what the article in the Wall Street Journal today started. I know you had this yesterday, but today's article was, hey, we can get you a lot more security if you'll accept a little less privacy.
Bingo. And as the smart world emerges around us, anything not compatible with the smart world is becoming obsolete. We're not going to be able to use certain things more and more. We're going to be required to have a smart assistant. Speaking of which, the first really interesting product that is being showcased there is a smart shower head with a built-in Alexa. Do you need Alexa in the shower with you?
You know what I think? I think the whole transgender bathroom thing is about getting surveillance into bathrooms. Where else can you do drugs or make an illegal deal or exchange cash or prostitution? All like illegal activity happens in the bathroom because they really have laws against putting cameras in there. Yeah. But if they start letting men who dress like women so that they can rape women, you know what I mean? Like they set up the danger of that abuse of the transgender bathroom system. Then they say, well, we can't discriminate against transgender people just because they're people who take advantage of the system who aren't transgender. So we have to put surveillance video in there because it's a severe safety risk.
Exactly. I could see it going that way. Let me give you one more product, then we'll tease the rest for tomorrow. Home drone security. Home drone security is a drone that when someone shows up, you have the Ring cameras. This is a little bit of a different play on the Ring cameras. People show up into the yard, fly, I guess, out of the back of your house. A drone zooms up, zooms down, and like Alien the movie or something, gets in front of your face, scans you.
Oh, yeah.
Finds out what you're there for, runs a facial recognition, and lets you know whatever it is you need to know about this person.
That's straight out of Minority Report.
It's crazy.
And other things, yeah.
Yeah.
Other things as well. Very interesting.
Well, that was an action-packed show. Well, go ahead.
Yes, the Colorado drone thing did make Fox headlines on Sirius today.
I got a note on YouTube about that.
because they have a joint drone task force.
Wow.
So there you go. There's your solution.
I saw that they're using special high-tech planes now to try and track them. Yet I got a message on YouTube. I don't have it in front of me. I can read it tomorrow. That says that this person says that he worked in that area and he knows exactly what these drones are, and it's very easy, and he doesn't know why there's this fuss over it. So I'm interested to follow up on what he said, and maybe I can report back tomorrow what I learned.
All right. Fantastic.
You guys can find your Drive Time News Blast every weekday afternoon around 4 p.m. on theproudreport.com or your favorite podcasting platform. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.